Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, the weekly analysis for you. On the screen, other pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video, as you do have a bonus pair there for you. We'll go through my trade for the week first and progress into the analysis shortly afterwards. Feel free to use the timestamps, which are located below, if you do want to skip ahead to a particular pair. But I didn't have any new positions this week, but I was holding a Aussie Swiss long from last week. Did see a nice move in my favor, but price did turn around. It got trailed out break even. After price did break structure here, that was my cue to remove risk and see if price can get going. It was a very corrective move, so I wasn't really too kind of confident that we were going to see the bigger move. I was looking to take some profits at the high here. Then if things went improved, hopefully the high up there as well. But we were very corrective. And that's why I remove risk. No point to kind of stay in the market when things tend to move like this. We do tend to push down, and that's exactly what happened. And we had a very violent move down as well. So I'm kind of backing away from Aussie CHF now. The market has broken the lows. We are starting to see some continued bearish structure. I do think the bigger move is still to the upside, but until I start to see some bullish structure come back into the market, we could probably continue to fall there. So might have to take a back seat with the bullish bias there with Aussie Swiss. Before we get into the other pairs we'll take a look at the DXY first, which for the most part is still looking pretty bearish. I was looking for a bit of a pullback this week before the continuation. We were respecting support pretty well. Massive wick rejection not too long ago. I was looking to see if we could have a slightly bigger pullback before price does continue. But no, we kind of consolidated. Then after CPI, we saw a very aggressive move to the downside, taking out the lows. So dollar is still well and truly bearish. You look at the higher time frames, the trend is still very much down. I'm not so eager to short the dollar. The market is still bearish, and perhaps we could still keep falling. But we are starting to come a bit more corrective, and especially at these lows, potentially USD strength could come in. Again, at the moment, everything is still bearish, and I wouldn't really be looking to try and buy the dollar until I see some bullish price action, at least taking out some of these highs here. If we were to see that, then yeah, I would shift my bias to bullish. If the market just respects this resistance level, then yeah, we very much could see another bearish wave, and so on and so forth. So this is going to be a very key level. So far, price is doing a pretty good job of respecting it. So let's see if we come back and retest it. There could be some nice opportunities to short the dollar next week, potentially long euro. We'll take a look at some other USD pairs shortly. But that's kind of my take on the DXY. Still bearish, but if we do turn bullish, I wouldn't be surprised. If we take up the highs there, I'll be looking for some continuations to the upside. In terms of euro, things are looking pretty much identical to the DXY, but just flipped. You can see here for Euro USD, overall the trend is still very much up. We swept the highs this week. We have left behind a nice level of resistance, which will be turned support. So if we can see price come back and revisit that, I think if we can see some healthy rejection, that would be a smart place to look for some longs, definitely kind of on the lower time frames, to see if we can swing it back to the high and probably call it a day there. Yes, the trend is still very bullish for euro, but we are quite corrective in that last bullish leg. So it's a sign that we are starting to slow down. Perhaps a bigger pullback could be on the way. So it's not necessarily the healthiest trend you'll ever see, but we are still, for the most part, very consistent with these higher highs and higher lows. So especially for kind of intraday, intra-week plays, I'll still focus on the buys for now. If we go and break structure like this and take out some of these lows, then yeah, we could probably look for some shorts after that. But until then, I'll focus on the lows here at 1.145, look for some entries, and see if we can swing it back to the high. So that would be the plan next week for Euro USD. Okay, so over to dollar yen. So dollar yen, I am kind of neutral for now until price does commit above resistance or support. For the most part, we have just been ranging, so it hasn't been my favorite pair to look at. There has been some nice buys at support. Price is rejected on a few occasions, but for the most part, we're still fluctuating between these two levels. I'm waiting to see if price can break one of these levels, and hopefully after that, we'll see some momentum, and hopefully the market will start to potentially trend again. Overall, there is a bearish trend there for dollar yen. This is kind of just a pause. It might build up to a reversal. It might give us a continuation. I'm just going to wait to see which level price breaks and then go from there. There's not too much importance about trying to predict which way price will go, because if we do break to the upside, we'll look for buys. If we do break to the downside, we'll look for sells. So we can just be patient, wait for the market to make its move. But these are still the opportunities I'm going to be focusing on. The analysis last week was pretty much the same as this week, because nothing's really changed apart from price kind of fluctuating a little bit more between those two levels. So keep a close eye on 146 and 142.5. Break above the high and retest it. We'll look for a push into the swing high here at 148.6 and break through the support level and retest it. We'll look for some shorts back into 140. So that will be the plan next week for dollar yen. Okay, so over to dollar CAD. So dollar CAD has been very bearish. We are now coming back into a very interesting zone. I've been talking about this area as a place where price is likely to get to and a place where price is likely to bounce as well. You can see we had a brief consolidation here. Price ripped to the upside with a lot of momentum, and now coming back to revisit that same area. So I am looking for buys now for dollar CAD. I'm not so interested in selling the pair anymore. I know the market is bearish. We're still seeing lower lows and lower highs, but based on where we're trading and based on how we're trading, it's starting to become a bit more corrective, starting to lose momentum. This is not really something which I'll look to try and follow, certainly as a swing trader. So I'm looking for signs of reversal. That could be equal lows, double bottom, a higher low, something like that. That will get me into a position where I know structure shifting, lows are failing to be broken, or higher lows are being created. That will be something I'll look for in terms of a structural shift, and then I'll look for my entries with my candlestick patterns. But this is really the area I'm looking to buy, and the setup's not quite there yet, and it might not even form. If dollar does stay bearish, we might just bleed and break through the zone. That could well be the case. But this is kind of a bullish territory where we'll look for buying opportunities. Like I said, the market's still bearish, so we're going to be playing a waiting game. But again, I'm not interested in selling in these areas because I would expect the big move to be to the upside. So looking for some buys now for dollar CAD. We're in a nice area, waiting for confirmations. And in terms of targets, just be looking at these relative swing highs here. Not looking for a massive reversal, but more so try and take advantage of a pullback. And then maybe price might continue bearish from then onwards. But I do expect to see a bit of a bounce around 1.36, 1.355 next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So I am bullish on Euro Pound. We've had a lovely break to the upside here. I was looking for a bit of a double bottom into this area. We had a nice area of demand not too long ago. Really nice push at the upside. You can see price came back to tap that area, and we've had a very bullish reaction since then. And I was looking to see if price can revisit it, double bottom, and then see the move. We had a bit of a consolidation coming into the week. Price was respecting some resistance there. So I thought we could have one more push down, respect support, and then might see the rally from there. But no, we had some weakness for pound this week. Euro is pretty strong as well. Caused the market to really push to the upside quite aggressively, kind of giving us a very nice inverse head and shoulder pattern. So you can see the left, the head, the right shoulder. This, of course, being the neckline. Prices well and truly snapped through that. So now looking for a pullback, a retest of that area could provide us the next high low in this sequence and a swing back to highs. I'm not too sure about Euro Pound pushing all the way back to the swing high up there. I'm still not overly confident with that, especially with just how the nature of Euro Pound is and how corrective we can be. So I would never really try and look for a big swing as long as the conditions are choppy. But it has provided a nice opportunity to at least swing it back to resistance there. And I think a trade for next week, that kind of makes sense. We might go further, so you might want to look at trading stops. There is somewhat of a trend forming here, but I'd rather keep it simple here with Euro Pound, especially knowing the history of the pair. But yeah, very solid level back down here at 0.845. It's looking like we're starting to pull back, so let's see if we can get there, see some healthy rejection. I think that'll be a smart place to buy and see if we can swing it back into resistance at 0.854, sorry. So yeah, that's the plan there for Euro Pound next week. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So we're still looking very, very fatigued here, and I still think there's more downside for this pair. I'm looking at the higher time frames. I can see the weekly charts looking very tired. A lot of wicks here to the upside. I know the market overall is bullish, but it's a very corrective trend and a very tired one as well. So I do think we can pull back, see some downside, and find some buys a lot lower, and then potentially look to continue the trend. I'm still looking at 0.625. I know that's about a year away from where current price is, but that's still kind of my most favored area for a long setup, especially for a swing position. In terms of the immediate price action, I've talked about some shorts. I'm looking to see if we can rally back to the higher end of the channel and look for some shorts around that area. I'm not really interested in buying Aussie dollar until we get back down to this area, 0.625, 623. That's kind of the areas which I want to operate in for a long. Yeah, that's the best I can really see for this pair. It's very corrective in behavior. Every time we spike higher, we come straight back down. So if you were to see that again, I would expect us to come right back down. Unless we break to the upside of the channel, so break out completely, then yeah, I would reconsider things. But at the moment, it doesn't look likely, and we might even fall from where we are right now. But in terms of entries, I would want to be up at the highest I can get a nice safe stop loss above the channel, at least take profits at the low. Maybe I'm lucky enough to capitalize on a bigger breakout. And the same with the longs, waiting for price to get there, and then hopefully we can find some long to take it back up and catch a big higher low. Because essentially I'm looking at the pullback of this move here. We've got the 50 in that kind of area, and then hopefully a continuation. So that remains the plan there for Aussie dollar going into next week. Okay, so over to New Zealand CAD. So I've been pretty bullish on New Zealand CAD, looking for longs at support. However, judging the higher time frames and seeing how we're closing, I am losing confidence in that bullish bias. We had that V-shaped pattern, but it looks like price has basically failed to continue. And the amount of rejection we've seen over the past few weeks is quite a lot, and especially with the last weekly candle, nice wick to the upside, back into resistance. But all these wicks have collected, and we close as a nice shooting star. So I do think price can actually drop to the downside, probably come back and retest support down at these lows. So I'm no longer really interested in buying New Zealand CAD. I still do think, however, this is a very strong level of support. So if price does get here, sees a nice rejection, I think that could still be a nice bounce, but I expect it to be short-lived. We might come back and retest some of these areas before potentially continuing lower. I think a nice short would be, which is in line with the higher time frames, would be if we can break support and look for a retest off the back of that and short it to the next zone, which is around 0.806, which kind of lines up with the low over here. So massive swing low, price had a big move to the upside, broke through, broke back above. Looks like potentially price might be on its way to go and retest that. So the shorts look a bit more favored now, especially with the rejection and the closure of this week. If we can see price just go and break straight through, well, that puts the favor to the bears there. And if we can find a retest, that'd be great. And I'll short it to the next zone. There's also the low just below us over here, so that could also be a nice target for the trade as well. But at least if we can get it to that low, I think that would suffice. So yeah, New Zealand CAD have been pretty bullish for a while, but it's looking like price is starting to break support. Or I'm expecting price to break support. We haven't broken through it yet, but I do expect it to do based on that weekly closure. And if we can make that happen next week, retest, shorts look good, back into 0.806 and potentially even 0.8 in the next coming days. But that's the plan there next week for New Zealand CAD. Okay, so next up we've got pound NZD. So it looks like price has kind of broken out of this bearish channel, and we've been looking pretty bullish since then. And it looks to me that we probably will see a push back to 2.27, and that is an area of interest for me because if I do expand to the daily chart, it's kind of an area where we're looking at potentially a head and shoulder pattern forming, left, head, and right shoulder. I was looking for us to get back into support, but it looks like we have formed some type of higher low here, and price is making a move back to resistance. So again, looking for entries there, possibly for a move back into the same level. If price does rally and break through, that will change my bias and I will become bullish in pound NZD. And at that point, looking at a swing back into the highs at 2.32. So either which way, if we're looking to buy or sell, this is really the zone I'm looking to focus on, and that will help determine my bias going forward with pound NZD, because of course if we do break through, now price is forming some bullish structure, we're breaking through that head and shoulder pattern, the chances are that this kind of overall bullish trend in the higher time frames is just going to continue for another leg. So we would be pretty bullish if we do clear that level at 2.27, and at the same time if we do reject it, well, I'm looking for a kind of a big double top to form and then swing at least back into the lows here. Again, still targeting 2.22 eventually. So make or break with that level. Looks like that's where price is headed to now. So hopefully we can get there sometime next week and look for some opportunities. And of course, if we do break through the level, then we'll start to look for some longs. But either which way, there's a nice swing to be taken advantage of, whether we're swinging it back to highs at 2.32 or into lows there at 2.22. So not really too bothered about which way it is, just as long as we can find a good opportunity, and that level would be my focus going to next week. So that's the plan next week for pound NZD. Okay, so up next we've got CAD Yen. So CAD Yen has been somewhat bullish this week. I mean, for the most part it was sideways, but we are still kind of continuing this bullish momentum here. If I map it out with this trend line, you can see price is slowly pushing to the upside, and we're kind of seeing this pattern with a few of the yen pairs. We'll take a look at pound yen in a moment. You'll see something similar to this, where we've got resistance and we've got these higher lows, and price is kind of just squeezing between these two levels, and eventually we're expecting a break. It looks like price is getting ready for a break to the upside, potentially forming a bit of a bottom here, and perhaps we got some room to the upside to fulfill. Yen does look pretty weak at the moment as well. I do think yen can still continue to fall. We'll see if that does really come into fruition, but technically anyway, yen is looking pretty weak. Looked at the yen basket, relating yen pairs as well. It does look like yen can still fall. We'll see if that does continue into the markets for next week, but very corrective price action anyway. And if we do see a strong break of that, that will of course allow opportunities for a break and retest for a long, perhaps seeing another higher low on the retest of that level. That would be a nice confluence for the position. As I've said, I'm not really interested inside this range here. This is where there's a lot of chaos, a lot of noise. I'm not trying to find entries and stop losses in this area, because it does put me at risk to getting kind of wicked out randomly. Whereas if I can focus at the highs or the lows, puts me just in a better place, whether I'm looking to sell at resistance or wait for the breaking retest, just in a smarter area. And hopefully if we do see a breakout, momentum's coming back into the market, so we should be able to take advantage of a pretty big trade as well. The longer the consolidation, typically the longer the breakout, or the bigger the breakout. So yeah, focus with 106.285. Like I said, we might break lower. If we do, again, not really interested in shorting that. So I'm more fixated on the buys here for CAD Yen, just waiting for us to break through and retest this 106 level. And then targets, the next major high I would say would be this point at 108.200. We can probably refine that just to 108, but yeah, that would be the plan next week for CAD Yen. Okay, so now on to pound USD. So I'm still bullish for pounds. There is still very much an uptrend. Price has broken through major highs to our left, and we're still staying above them. I was looking for the retest this week at that level for a nice double bottom, but that was last week. So I was looking for another retest. Again, this week didn't quite happen. And then we're also speaking about the breaking test of the highs here. That didn't quite happen as well. So the analysis hasn't really changed too much. If the trend is going to continue, then I'm still looking for price to break highs and continue from then onwards, because at the moment we're kind of consolidating. It looks like momentum's dying. We tried to break through the highs, didn't end up so well. Euro had a very successful breakout, pound not so much. So if I'm going to be looking to buy pound USD, I need to see evidence that the trend is still healthy and breaking through the highs well, and looking for a retest will show me, okay, momentum's still there. There's still more room to the upside. On the other hand, if price does push down and break through support and break back underneath this level here, well, that's a pretty bearish signal to me, and I will be looking at shorts at that moment in time, probably on a retest of that same zone for shorts back into this low. So I can see price going both ways. It really depends what the USD wants to do. Does it continue being bearish? Well, then we'll probably break through highs, and we can start to discuss the long opportunity on a breaking retest of 1.36. And if USD does gain strength, then pound's likely to fall. Of course, we'll probably break and retest this level, or hopefully get the retest around 1.343. So it really depends what USD wants to do, but no matter the scenario, there should be a setup there for us. So keep an eye on both levels. At the moment, we're kind of just consolidating, so not really interested in the middle of this, just waiting for price to commit in a direction, and hopefully you can find some trades off the back of that. So that's the plan next week for pound USD. Okay, so over to pound CAD. So I'm leaning more towards a bearish bias with this one. We're seeing a lot of rejection on the weekly chart. Of course, the overall trend is still to the upside, but we are tiring, and I'm looking for a deeper pullback. We've got a nice zone down here around 1.82. I think there's a good chance price can come back and retest that. Looking at the 4-hour chart, you can see we've had a lovely bullish move there on Wednesday. Price tried to continue and break through resistance. That failed, and since we have come back down. So if we can continue with this bearish structure, that keeps me bearish. So in terms of entries, I would be looking at a retest of this low. As long as we don't go and rally through the high there, that would make me pretty bearish on the pair. If we do go and break structure and take up the highs, I would look to go and shift to bias. But price action isn't the best. It is quite choppy still, but if we can get a clean break of the low, that should present some nice opportunities for a retest for a sell. If we do go and rally and break through this, then we'll probably see a push back to highs. So there could be some bullish opportunities above that level, but because of the weekly rejection, I do favor us continuing lower and another retest of that 1.82 level on the weekly chart. So looking for a break and a retest just to confirm momentum is still with the bears. And then of course that level could become really nice resistance depending on a retest and how we react with it. I would also keep an eye on this low here as well. I think that could be a good initial target, or even just to close the trade completely, but my expectation is still more downside with pound CAD and eventually a push back to 1.82. So that's the plan next week for pound CAD. Okay, so next up we've got pound yen. So I haven't been a fan of the market structure with pound yen because again, we're kind of squeezing between this trend line and that resistance, similar to the analysis with CAD yen. Not really looking to trade within this area until price does break out. So if we are going to push to the upside, I do have some targets around 200, big weekly swing high up there. If we do break through resistance, that's where we're likely to end up. And if we do see price start to break to the downside, take out the lows of that trend line, we probably will see another swing back into the low, kind of continue this bearish structure here on the daily chart. So I can see price going both ways, and again, no need to try and force anything, just waiting for price to make its mind up, and then hopefully we can find some opportunities off the back of that. I'm keeping an eye on break and retest like this, and of course a retest of the lows there. Again, this is a bit more hypothetical, it depends how big of a breakout. We might be looking at a retest of this low, could be the retest of this low, or some structure that the market creates on the way down as well. So this is a little bit more kind of, we have to wait to see how the market shapes up type of thing. But if you do break to the upside, well, this is the level I would focus on. So pound yen, I can see price going both ways. Breaking retest of 196.300, and for now we'll focus on the breaking retest of this low. But like I said, if the breakout's a lot bigger, we might be focusing not so much on that level, more so this low as well. So keep in mind both kind of areas for that breaking retest opportunity. But in terms of the major targets, if we do swing lower, 186.5 is kind of where I'm looking for, and if you do swing higher, a push to 200 is where I'm looking for the market to get to. But the important thing is getting out of this mess. Price is kind of just ranging. It's going to keep squeezing until we finally break out. Hopefully get the breakout next week, and then we can find some opportunities. But that'll be the plan for pound yen. Okay, so on to gold. So gold, we had a lovely break and retest this week. Of course, we had the channel. We had a very strong push to the downside at the end of last week. I said as long as price stays above this could be a break and retest opportunity for price to retest the channel after the breakout and continue. It looks like that's exactly what we got. Price is now breaking back above the highs. So the opportunity I was referring to last week in terms of the break of this high, then a retest, then a continuation, is now back on the card. So now that we've got that confirmed higher low and a confirmed higher high, it has now left behind a really nice level for a retest, for some opportunities to look for the next higher low. Of course, this would be our next higher high. And then since we're so close to the all-time highs at 3,500, well, that's where we would expect price to end up at, and probably see some more of it as well. So it looks like the trend overall for gold is just continuing. You can see a very, very bullish trend there for gold. So not really interested in the shorts at all, especially as a swing trader, just focusing on taking advantage of those higher lows and keep buying it as long as the market keeps up with that bullish structure, which so far it is doing. So area of interest, 33.85 we can call it. Hopefully a retest in and around this area. We might spike below, but roughly this is the area I'm looking for the buy, and then targets back into the swing high, and not necessarily targets by expectations, because I would want to trail stops and just see how far we can take it. I wouldn't want to just take profit completely at that level, just because gold being gold could skyrocket, maybe to 3,600, and don't want to miss out on that. So keep that in mind. But yeah, gold's still bullish. Keep an eye on the break and retest. Expecting more highs next week. Okay, so over to BTC. So Bitcoin's still not looking particularly great, I must add. We are still kind of having a lot of trouble at the highs, which again, not a good sign for the buyers here. This could turn into like a big consolidation, and I think that would be a good thing for Bitcoin, because we might end up having some sort of kind of continuation pattern. So impulse, correction, continuation, but we'll speak a lot more about that if that does start to develop to happen. At the moment though, we just got a lower high that price has created and pushed down. I was looking to see if price can break out of this channel with some momentum, which we did, but look for a retest, kind of like what gold did. Nice breakout of the channel, retested and continued. This one looks like it's trying to break back inside. So I am less confident with BTC. I think buys do look good back at support here. It's been a very sturdy support. Momentum is still with the buyers in the market. When we did come here last time, very strong reaction. So I think this is still a great place to be looking to buy the market. But I do expect us to swing straight back to highs. Not as much. I'll be a little bit more kind of conservative with targets. Nothing wrong with targeting up there, but I would try to manage the trade and lock in targets beforehand. This could end up being a nice initial target. If we push down, that might be a nice area. Of course, that would be a nice area as well, even before we do get back to the highs. But as long as price stays above 101k, I remain bullish for BTC. If price does break through, then at that point we've got some bearish structure to follow, and I'll probably be looking at a low high or a retest of that level at that point. So I would be turning pretty bearish. But for now, still a strong level of support. So keeping a close eye on that level, and at least looking for a bounce from that zone. So BTC still just about bullish. I'll wait for us to come a lot lower before looking for longs. Wait for around 101k, see if we can get some healthy rejection, and hopefully some buyers can follow up from then onwards. But that will be the plan for BTC next week. Okay, so last but not least, we've got dollar CHF, which is our bonus pair for this week, and I'm liking the short opportunity with this one. CHF pairs did end up the week pretty bearish. We saw a lot of strength with the CHF. And of course, a lot of weakness with USD, which did cause a bit of a slip there to the downside this week. But we haven't quite taken out the lows. I want to mention the weekly chart because it is looking very critical in terms of the rejection we've had. And that could lead to a lot more downside. We've already had a nice initial push. We came back to the level, rejected it with that big wick, nice strong close. I do think prices eventually take out that wick low. So I do think from a weekly standpoint, we're still due to expect more downside. So dropping to the lower time frames, you can see how price has been moving, kind of like a big head and shoulder pattern here. Left head and then right shoulder. And now this week, we've got the break of the neckline and left behind a lovely area of consolidation. And this kind of looks similar to the DXY. So if we can see the DXY continue lower, we probably will see dollar CHF continue lower as well. And a retest of that zone would be very much appreciated. This is where we kind of stalled for a little bit, and that's where all the momentum came from. So a retest of that probably attract more sellers into the market, and we can see a continuation back into the lows. So yeah, dollar CHF pretty bearish. I think we can still see some new lows past 0.803, which is where the lows lie here, and then we'll see what happens after that. But it's a very bearish market. Dollar is still bearish as a whole. We still do have these lower highs, so as long as we can respect that area, of course, that trend line will act as confidence to the trade as well. I do think we can see some new lows next week. So keep close eye on some pullbacks for dollar CHF and some more shorting opportunities. But that, guys, does bring us to the end of the analysis. If you have found it useful, please be sure to smash the like button. It does really help out the content, helps out the channel. Subscribe to the channel as well if you want to see more of the content, and make sure you do hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Comment down below any pairs you're looking to trade next week. I'm interested to find out which pairs you guys are looking to trade. But nonetheless, guys, have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the new week.